Hey, it's episode 117 of Future Chat. This is around the time when I am going to stop saying the number of the show because it's getting very high. But for now, we are here and we have just a ton of car news this week. But first, Nick, you posted something on Snapchat that has got me very intrigued. So I want to know what you're brewing this week.
I'm brewing beer.
Mm-hmm.
Is more so than, the tea and coffee that I usually brew.
What about soy sauce?
I've never brewed soy sauce. I've used it, and I think it's very reasonably priced. So I don't think I'll have to brew it myself.
That makes sense.
But so extremely long-term listeners to the show will remember my brewing escapades. And my mother sent my brewing equipment to me for my birthday.
Oh, that's nice.
And a buddy of mine had a birthday around the same time and received brewing equipment from his girlfriend. So the IPA and Irish Red Ale recipes that I've used, they were on hand, and we brewed them up this week.
And things are going well. It takes longer than a week, right? Like this is a several week thing that's not done.
Yeah. We also got some very good tips from the brew guy, in which I looked at my recipe and went, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And he looked at it and went, okay, don't do that. Here, do this instead. And it seems like that'll work well.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Matt. How do you bottle your brew?
Very carefully.
Like in twisty cap glass bottles, or I don't know how. I don't know the guy.
I have the flip cap pint bottles.
Okay. Like with a little latch type thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the little latch type thing.
Cool.
Any special ingredients in this one, like a jalapeno or root beer or something?
No, just love.
Okay.
Just regular organic love.
You make it sound like there's some kind of narcotic in there.
just regular synthesized in my home love.
So you'll have to follow up with us in the next couple episodes. Let us know how it's going. If you've created any pressure vessels.
I had a brewing emergency yesterday.
Yeah.
And I wasn't here to take care of it because I was brewing elsewhere. But my research staff came across a problem.
Yeah.
The airlock had fallen out for some reason, and they managed to repair it over the phone. Because
oh wow, this is like a
good research
NASA
staff,
mission.
Very dedicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's. I mean, it may yet go very wrong because of that, but
I don't know.
I'm hoping there was enough gaseous outflow that it would keep anything from falling in.
Sure. I don't know if you do you ever refer to things like this? Seems like a pretty intense experiment / I don't know, endeavor that you're undertaking.
Which, the love or the beer?
The beer.
Because the love was definitely harder.
I would say that I was referring to the beer. But that's the kind of thing, like now that we have Teddy, when he gets through any kind of barricade we set up to prevent him from getting to other places in the house, I always yell out "puppy breach," and it makes it seem way more intense than it actually is. I feel like if I did have some kind of breach of this vessel, I would yell "beer breach" or something like that. Just makes it seem more epic.
Yeah, I want to say I would probably go with a Doctor Strangelove sort of reference.
Mm-hmm.
And then say, like, the integrity of my precious bodily fluids.
So just coming back to the science side of things, I forget how you measure the alcohol content. Is it density?
Yeah, it's with
like a floaty thingy, right?
Yeah, it's a little floaty thing. I think they call it a gravitometer or something like that to read the gravity. Right. It's really density.
Okay.
Specific gravity, isn't that?
That's a thing, right?
That sounds right as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's density normalized to water.
Right.
Sense.
Cool.
Yep. I was off because my stove doesn't work particularly well.
So do you recalibrate it every time? So you zero it when you put it in, and then the change indicates how much alcohol's in it. Like
you
it's
take a reading before and a reading after, and that'll
Right.
tell you how much alcohol you've made.
That's what I mean. So the change is not an absolute reading, but it's the change in density that shows the
Yeah.
alcohol content. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Cool. So a lot of things have happened over the last few weeks relating to cars. And while there is a Tesla angle to this, because of course there is, and their news might be the biggest thing of all. I don't know, Mike, you have a couple of, you started off here. You have this Apple car story that isn't actually an Apple car story. What made you put this in here?
Well, it's weird because this whole idea of Apple being in the autonomous vehicle game
Mhm.
has been widely speculated and rumored, but all but confirmed.
Yeah.
And now it's less than confirmed somehow.
All but canceled.
Like it's weird. You had no news, no official news, but now there's news about that non-official news that
Mhm.
people suspected they were building their own vehicle a la Tesla, but now it looks like they're just potentially developing software, but again, not confirmed. But now
Right.
it's like, well, they're not building a car,
Yeah.
even though they didn't confirm
It's
they
speculation on speculation.
were. Kind of, yeah, which is really weird. But yeah, it sounds like they're bowing out of the manufacturing game, which is probably a good idea.
Mhm.
Tesla's kind of cornered the market on that, even before the market's even started. And
Wow.
well, you know what I mean.
Traditional car manufacturers are going to catch up, so to speak.
You'd expect, but I guess that's the whole game of Apple. I understand is now they're going to do the software side so that car manufacturers can just license
Yeah.
or just use, I don't know how the economics works, but they'd essentially use the Apple software in their vehicles,
Mhm.
which works out for everyone really, because
Well,
car
yeah.
manufacturers already have the infrastructure and distribution, and Apple's good at the software side, so they'll just do that.
It's an interesting thing because this is something that Apple hasn't really done since the 90s. Like they've specifically stayed away from licensing their software onto other hardware.
Right.
So
That's true.
I assume that's why they wanted to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And I could see it getting very messy because car touchscreens are horrible. And that would be the main interface
Right.
for this.
I was going to say, after you talked about them not putting their software into other hardware, I'm assuming or imagining that they'd probably build their own interface
Mhm.
and computer, so to speak,
Yeah.
to be put into the car. So there's probably going to be some sort of hardware component that they're going to manufacture, such as like a computer display or heads-up
Yeah.
display or whatnot, to be put into your Ford Focus.
Mhm.
I don't even know if they make that car anymore, but
If it was a black box that they
Right.
manufactured and then put in a car, I could see that being better overall than saying, here's our software bundle, car manufacturers take it and put it with whatever
Yeah.
hardware you want, because that has traditionally not gone very well.
Yeah. How does CarPlay work right now? Because the device that you can run CarPlay on is the OEM car
Yeah.
computer, right? It's not an Apple hardware.
Right. I think, and I might be wrong about this, but I think Android Auto and CarPlay both work by letting the software from the phone or whatever, I think it's only phones that do it, pass through the entertainment system. But I don't know that if you had a car with no iPhone there, that CarPlay could work. I think it basically almost like projects its interface into the car.
Okay. Android Auto, from my understanding, is a standalone system. It doesn't need a phone
doesn't
to
need a phone?
work. Like you pair it with a phone, but I'm pretty sure it has its own standalone maps functionality and whatnot. Like it still needs an internet connection somehow.
Right.
But I think it's still functional without the phone.
Okay.
But
I'm
it
pretty
could
sure
be.
CarPlay is not. It would
Okay.
be nothing because most of the features are like phone features that are just
Right.
displayed on the screen.
Okay. Yeah,
If not
like
all of
because
them.
with Android Auto systems, if you get a car with it, I think you can still hook into like the car's like the FM radio, and I think you
Okay.
could probably be playing to that. But you can switch into different modes
Right.
that could tap into your phone's functionality, such as
Mhm.
calls or music playing. Nick's showing us. Oh, he lost his Pokemon.
No, that was a Pokestop.
Okay.
He lost a Pokestop?
Well, he got out of range of it.
Okay.
Well, I wobbled out of range of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was, I mean, part of this news, I covered this for a bit a while ago on Mobile Syrup. They Apple was acquiring, or they opened an office in Ottawa, or they were leasing office space. That was the big rumor, and it was right next to QNX, which is a software company that develops real-time operating systems for cars, like the kind you would want if you were trying to set up an autonomous car. And there were kind of rumors there that they might be working with QNX, or that they are working with QNX. And so I'm curious to see how that office space and that kind of branching out would be affected by this. Whether they're going to, that means that office is going to be shut down, that research is going to be scaled back, or if this is actually all part of the same project, so it'll stick around. But I think it's very interesting that they're going in this direction. And people have been commenting, people that know a lot more about the industry than we do have been commenting that it's kind of good. Like, usually you don't see this kind of stuff that Apple does, but because sources are whispering or talking pretty loudly about plans, this is the kind of thing where you hear about a plan getting thought about and then canceled, where Apple is actually doing this all the time, and good companies that do R&D are doing this all the time. They're exploring things, but not necessarily going through with all of them.
Right.
So it's actually kind of healthy to have that churn.
Yeah. It's more like we're seeing the curtain pulled back because
Exactly.
we technically shouldn't have heard about this in the first place.
Mhm.
Right? Unless it was a controlled leak, but who knows at this point which ones are and which ones aren't.
And the controlled leak thing would make sense, because if they want to see what everyone thinks about Apple making a car, then they can decide. They have that information to see if it's worth it. It's almost like free market research, because
For sure.
any Apple news is going to make waves.
Yeah.
Like, they did the same thing with very allegedly, they did the same thing with the headphone jack. Like, a year before they were going to do it, it was like the next iPhone may not have a headphone jack. And then within a couple months leading up to the event, it was like, yeah, it's definitely not going to have the headphone jack.
Yeah.
And everyone was fine with it.
I think that was more getting people used to it.
Well,
not
yeah, exactly.
not like, should we do it? Because I think they're probably going to do it anyway. It's just they wanted to give people a heads up versus but just at the event or, a couple months out saying, oh, crap, this iPhone doesn't have a headphone jack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
And from what I've heard, it's been fine.
I feel like the federal government might have also done a controlled leak this past week.
Oh?
Yeah, like when all of a sudden it was all over the news that they might step back from electoral reform, and then everyone, Rob on Facebook included, lost their collective minds. And then I think it was a day or two ago, he came back and said, no, we're committed to it. Don't worry about it, guys.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been a little, because I think they made some off-the-cuff remark like, oh, yeah, but I mean, we're only going to do it if there's public appetite for such a thing.
Yeah.
And then, but there is public appetite! And, well, of course, we know.
This is your biggest promise. Why would you go back on it? Please.
Maybe Trump is a controlled leak of like just crazy leadership reform. And it's like, guys, America's not ready for Trump.
If we can let this happen, there's something wrong with the system. Yeah. People have been saying that for a while, because he was basically a Democrat up until the point they started running as a Republican. Yeah.
And then people still think he's secretly a Democrat.
Yeah.
Running to get the Democrats in office.
Yeah. Which would be a really weird long play, because he's been talking about it for a really long time.
Yeah.
But like as late as long ago as the 90s, he was talking about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like the reason that the Simpsons had predicted him doing like doing a presidential run at some point.
Okay.
I forget exactly. I stopped watching The Simpsons every week a while ago, but I remember seeing the clips when he announced he was running, and it's like, yeah, last 4 years ago, the last election, he coyly said, "Oh, I might run for like 3 months," but then never actually did. And so, yeah, it's been slowly building to this, but it does seem really odd that that such a terrible candidate is like getting propped up by the Republican side.
Yeah.
But
A more
And that was
promising,
when Future Chat lost half its listeners.
in more promising world leader news, or at least
Mhm.
industry leader news, what do we have as far as Elon Musk is concerned?
well, that's a great segue. So this week was probably the biggest week since Tesla announced autopilot. I don't know if you guys watched the little demo video they made, but Tesla has now put out at least a demo version for the press, presumably in the next couple of weeks, of fully auto driving software. So autopilot currently does, I think it can do like on ramps. It can do like most like highway driving and then kind of leading up to highway driving. So you can turn it on if you're on like a straight. It doesn't necessarily have to be a highway, but like a long straight road. But it
Mhm.
won't do turns. It won't do navigation. It won't get you around or anything. It'll just basically stay in the lane.
Right.
So the video they announced, which I'm not exactly sure if they've set a release date, but show the video of a guy summoning his car. So standing outside his house, summons the car to him, gets in, does not touch the wheel once. It's got a destination programmed in, and it just goes. And they filmed it the entire way. They show some of the camera views that the other cameras. There are like 4 cameras pointing out in each corner direction. So there's no blind, like a car that self drives would obviously have to have no blind spots. So it goes rural roads. It reads stop signs. It stops at intersections, like even uncontrolled intersections where there's like a lane to turn right. It'll sit and wait and stop and then go. It went on highways. It changed lanes. It does everything. And then the guy gets to, I guess it's a Tesla building. He gets there. It pulls up to the front door. He gets out, closes or I guess the door closes because the doors open and close on their own. So it opens the door at the destination. He gets out, door closes, and then the car drives around the parking lot, finds a spot, and parallel parks into it. And it's like
So
it's door to door basically.
to summon the car, can he just stand on the corner and shout, "Autobots assemble"?
Probably not, although I can see them doing that at some point. As far as I know, you can summon the car using an app. You just like open the Tesla app and hit summon, and it'll come to wherever you are. But this is, I believe it's supposed to be by 2018, and all new cars will have the hardware. All the new Teslas that are being made now are going to have the new hardware to do this. Whether it won't be turned on yet, and I think it'll probably go through a pretty extensive beta testing phase while they try to get government approval to make it real. But it looked really like it's a very impressive demo. And as you know, they give it to the press and let them do kind of controlled experiments. I think everyone's going to get on board with it super quickly, because the idea of not having to drive to get somewhere in a car seems amazing.
Now, I'm assuming this wouldn't work in Canada, where in the winter lanes disappear and 3-way roads turn into, or 3-lane roads turn into 2-lane roads.
Well, so here's the thing, and this is, I think, probably from the video that I saw, this is the most important step in autonomous cars, because they are the reason that they can do this so quickly, iterating on this software for autonomy, is the fact that they have this massive fleet of cars collecting all this data for them all the time. So they not only learn where all the road markings are, what the speed limits are, they learn how traffic drives on every road that a Tesla drives on. And so they could see that during the winter, in places where there are no lane markings, or the lane markings are obscured by snow, they would see, oh, everyone is driving like this. Like the autopilot currently uses lane markings, but it also uses the car in front of you
Mm-hmm.
to monitor how you drive. So if the car ahead of you on a snowy road started driving between two lanes, just like you said, turning 3-lane road into a 2-lane road, it would very quickly adapt to that.
Mm.
And so you wouldn't necessarily, like, again, when you have a fleet of autonomous cars and there's no drivered cars on the road, you can start to use even mesh networking, and the cars can communicate with each other to stay out of each other's way. And they might even, you either might get to the point that you wouldn't need to turn a 2-lane or a 3-lane road into a 2-lane road because they would all be operating together within like millimeter precision, or they would all be able to just communicate, and you wouldn't need 3 lanes because they're in such good communication, and they would just be able to take 2 lanes and go nuts in there. Like, you wouldn't necessarily have traffic jams because drivers are the reason that there are traffic jams, because you're constantly slowing up and slowing down and speeding up. And that's what, like, it's that kind of, I use the word chaos very loosely. It's that kind of chaos, that like unpredictability, that causes traffic jams and traffic slowdowns.
Right.
So you wouldn't have that in that situation.
Yeah. So there's your TLDR of CGP Gray's video, by the way.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
it's
take it
not
back.
CGP Gray's idea.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
that came to mind, like the illustration when you were talking about the mesh network, and
Yeah.
I guess he illustrated that intersection where you wouldn't need traffic lights because they're all just ripping past each other with precision.
And
Guys, I take it back. Watson would be the best name for a car, because then you would pick up your phone and say, "Watson, come here. I need you," and then the car would come to you.
yeah, the unsettling thing relatively about winter driving is that if you did have that mesh network, there is a degree of uncertainty in road conditions. If you hit a patch of ice in a self-driving car, either you'd have to have some kind of anchor system that comes out. Like, I don't know exactly how it would work. It wouldn't be like a traditional boat anchor, but some kind of system to stop it. Or every self-driving car that was on ice would have to detect it was on ice and drive super, super carefully on it.
Cars already do that, though.
Not autonomously.
Well, kind of. They monitor the wheel RPM
Yeah, there's anti-lock
versus
braking.
Are you talking about ABS?
ABS,
or
yeah.
That and there's also loss of traction warnings.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. That's basically
Yeah.
what you'd need.
Right, but so I'm not saying that there's no existing warning system. I'm saying if you have an autonomous car, you can't claim 100% safety if the conditions aren't 100% predictable, because you could just slide out. Like, by the time you've detected a loss of friction, it's too late. You have no friction. You can go into defensive mode if you detect the loss of friction at any point, like be on the lookout or be kind of on high alert that there could be a loss of friction at any time.
The thing is that there's very predefined ways to handle skids and loss of traction, all that kind of stuff. So a computer is still better,
absolutely,
to handle that, because they'll respond literally immediately. Whereas the person needs to be like, "Oh crap, what's happening? Oh right, I'm skidding. Oh, what do I have to do now?" Right?
Yeah, they'll respond immediately, and
by
perfectly.
then they're smoked by like a semi, right? But an autonomous vehicle would be like, "Okay, my parameters suggest that we're spinning out, so I better do this."
Yeah,
but it's all instantaneous.
They'll respond in the best way possible immediately,
Right.
to the best, assuming they're programmed properly to the rules of skidding. Like, I'm not like a stunt driver trained with emergency stopping or turning or anything on ice, but I imagine if you were building a self-driving car fleet, you would want to have engineers take all those things into consideration.
Yeah. You could even, in certain locales, have road condition flags, I guess.
Yeah.
And Tesla communicating with its server or wherever, it'll say the road you're currently on is level 3, drive this way.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to drive.
Yeah.
Right. I guess still with the possibility of, driver override, but if it's working autonomously, it will behave according to the conditions that the roads warrant.
Yeah. And I don't know how. I've never, like, first of all, I've never been in a Tesla, but I've never been in a Tesla in winter conditions. So I don't know exactly how that kind of system, like there are other cars that have advanced driving assist features, like kind of skid resistance or automatic anti-lock brake emergency stopping type of thing. I don't know how those systems react to ice, but I assume that any car that's sold in places where you get those kind of conditions in the winter would have some kind of system set up for those conditions.
Or Tesla could take the route of this is not designed to drive in adverse conditions, use at your own risk.
Yeah.
Type thing, right?
Like even we talked when Google self-driving car was more of a thing. We talked about how it couldn't, like they didn't even try it in rain. It was just like not going to work. But at a certain point, if a self-driving car is going to actually take hold, it'll have to be able to do rain. It'll have to be able to do snow, any kind of conditions. The car's not going to just, like, it's not going to work if the car shuts itself down anytime it starts raining or having any type of weather.
Right.
I wonder if you could have, like, this would be tricky, obviously, but did you hear stories of the people who were fleeing Fort Mac during the fires and how they had to drive through like walls of flames?
Yeah.
Wonder if you could have just like an evacuation setting that the police unlock for you. Because you basically have to drive as fast as you can out of a certain place. And I also heard stories of people like with wildfires in the mountains where the cops would stop them and be like, "Hey, what you doing?" They're like, "I'm trying to escape. I would like to escape, please." And the police basically tell them, "Okay, well, you need to get like past that fire there, so don't slow down."
Right.
But I imagine, because computers handle everything better than we do,
Yeah.
it would handle extremely high speeds better than we do, particularly if they have radar that can penetrate smoke and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
When you talked about unlocking evacuation mode, I pictured like the roof opening up and a helicopter propeller just coming up and evacuation engaged.
Go gadget evacuation.
Elon Musk's voice comes on. He's like,
Yeah. Hello. Welcome to evacuation.
All I can think of is Cal from Undergrad. "Hey, guy. Looks like you're evacuating. Hang on tight now."
So, Mike, you put another little addendum to this. Someone was looking through the fine print of the new kind of, I don't know if it's in the software agreements you sign when you get a Tesla, but trying to, or not allowing people to generate revenue by putting their Teslas on ride-sharing services autonomously.
Yeah. Well,
this is a weird one.
Yeah, we brought up the Tesla rideshare network program thing a while ago for different Tesla owners to swap vehicles when they're not using them.
Right.
So this is kind of related to this, but it's more like Tesla seems to be developing its own rideshare network where you're hailing a Tesla, but Tesla doesn't want their vehicles being used with things like Uber or Lyft, where you're contracting out your Tesla to be summoned by other users, non-Tesla owners. So you're legally agreeing to not have your vehicle used for that purpose when you buy one or use their autonomous driving feature. I'm not, like you said, I don't know which
it's just the autonomous. That was the thing that I think, at least from everything I read in the actual like Tesla press release, was that you can't use ride hailing apps like Uber autonomously. So you can't just send your car to pick someone up by Uber, but it doesn't restrict you from being an Uber driver because you have a Tesla.
Right. And it also doesn't restrict you from using that functionality with family members,
right, exactly,
and friends. Just you can't make money from
it. Yeah.
So
seems like
sure,
a non-story.
Kind of. Well, if people are going to do it, they're going to do it anyway, and just like, how are they going to find out, right? Like, so it's interesting though that it's tipping their hand more to their network that they're developing. And kind of their kind of big picture view for it, that it's going to be a thing, I guess, at the level of Uber potentially, if they're saying don't be involved with Uber.
Yeah.
So.
But it's interesting, but I don't think it's as much of a thing as all these blogs made it out to be.
Kind of, yeah. It's yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll see what it looks like when we actually get to that point. But
Yeah.
I think people are just intrigued by the notion of this Tesla network because it is an interesting thing and it's very wishy-washy what it's going to look like.
Right.
All we know is that it's going to be for Tesla owners to share vehicles between each other. But other than that, there isn't much kind of shed light on it.
So, Nick, we've had a story in here from you for the last probably month or so. And
I was just thinking about it. It's about 3 weeks. And it's
really
far more
wanted to talk
important
about
than
it.
anything we've talked about in that time.
Yeah. And so I honestly really I read this a while ago and I really want to discuss it. So what's going on?
Well, as we said, the clickbaity headline is that the science world is freaking out over this 25-year-old's answer to antibiotic resistance.
And what is that? What is that answer?
The answer to antibiotic resistance might be not using antibiotics at all.
That makes sense.
Who is the student? What's her name? Just let me read through this article here. This is great radio. Shu Lam, a 25-year-old PhD student at the University of Melbourne in Australia, has developed a star-shaped polymer that can kill 6 different superbug strains without antibiotics simply by ripping apart their cell walls.
And so, have
I'll
you read anything
pause
about
for you
this
to all
since?
just sit in awe of how great that is.
Yeah. So,
But
since this came out, have you read anything more, or is it still like this is early research coming in? And
this is probably from a communication, so far as I know. And if we're talking about something with medicinal applications, like this could take a very long time to reach the consumer stages.
Yeah.
But
It's
I'm
one of
just
those
so
things-
excited about it. I believe this one came from my research staff as well.
Yeah. This story seems like one of those things that one of those stories you hear about how they start doing clinical trials on humans and they get such good results that they have to stop the trial early because it just it's such a better solution than, or at least in theory, if it works as well in humans as it does in their current tests. It's like, why would we make people suffer through infections when we can stop them and there's no threat of antibiotic resistance? Like, everyone is super worried about superbugs and things like MRSA in hospitals that give you infections that can't be treated effectively.
And I mean, rightly so, they're worried.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how quickly this reacts? Like, from the time that you introduce it to the system, how quickly it gets rid of the virus or the bacteria?
I don't think so.
Well, this is like Petri dish.
Right, obviously at this point, but
Yeah.
you should be able to
I would say fast.
extrapolate. Based on what?
Based on biology.
I'm trying to find the name of them too. They call them snaps, and I can't find. Structurally nano-engineered antimicrobial peptide polymers. So cool.
Yeah.
There's a picture in this story of these snaps attacking a bacterial cell.
Yeah.
I highly encourage you to go check that out because it is so cool.
Yeah. You know what this makes me wish? It makes me wish that CRISPR was called Crackle. Because then we would only need pop and we'd have all our biology solved.
I was just thinking
actually,
how much work goes into coming up with these acronyms.
Yeah.
it's
It's a lot.
I had a frank talk about acronyms with a professor at McGill. She said that it kind of depends on the interests of the person that came up with it, because there's one there at McGill called Mocha, and the person that came up with it really, really, really liked coffee.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is great because, I mean, we've, as reported in earlier episodes, we finally hit a wall where we have no antibiotics that can treat at least one superbug out there.
Yeah.
So there is one superbug that we are absolutely helpless to treat.
Yeah, if you get it, you're either like it's back to the 1900s. If you
Yeah,
get
it's
this,
like
you're either going
we
to
can
fight
treat
through
your
it,
symptoms, but that's about all we can do. It's up to your
your immune
uh,
system.
your immune system to take it down.
Are there no immune boosters that you can introduce? And I'm not talking about vitamin C. I mean actual.
What?
Like, no.
It's a legitimate question.
You can, but
I don't
not that
know
will
how
help.
that kind of stuff works. Like to kind of support the immune system or the white blood cells to kind of put up a better fight than it otherwise would on its own.
I mean, unless you want to do like blood doping,
I guess, yeah. But would
but
that
you
help
could
with?
take out your own white cells and then keep them in a jar and then reintroduce them later when you need them. I guess like if you
That
were
seems like a
blood
recipe for
doping a
disaster.
sport or something like that, you could just you say, okay, take out the red cells. I'll need those right before I go to the Olympics. But also those white cells, keep those in a jar too, because I might need those later.
Yeah, but these kind of treatments where we're not tweaking an existing type of molecule for our own purposes, where we're actually building this building or using this kind of superstructure to selectively take down specifically bacteria in this case, seems like a way better solution. Like antibiotics, as soon as we created antibiotics, I'm sure think pieces of the day in newspapers or whatever was before the internet. I'm sure everyone, like I know the doctors, for instance, were like, this is great, but we're going to face a bigger problem because that we know the bacteria evolve really quickly, and this is probably going to get worse once these antibiotics stop working as well.
I don't know, like once when they discovered penicillin, I can't imagine there was a whole lot of naysaying going on. More because it was, I want to say it was a more science-friendly era, but at the same time, newspapers were also kind of less dog whistle than they are now.
Sure.
It was more like, here, we're going to write actual news and see how that works instead of, here, we're going to try and figure out whether our audience is Democrat or Republican. Then we're going to write Democrat or Republican friendly articles just to appeal to them so that they can stay in their echo chamber and really get riled up about whatever it is that makes them buy our newspapers.
Yeah, this is a very politically charged episode.
I was going to say, did you take that off of Vox's mission statement?
Yeah.
Little blurb there.
I didn't.
Never mind.
I don't get it, but I would like to talk about that later. So let's put a pin in that. But I'm really excited about this because, like, now I'm no biochemist. I don't actually know how antibiotics work specifically. But if this is a different step that, like, is guaranteed to breach cell walls, unless bacteria can somehow evolve to have different cell walls. Anyway, I'm super excited about it because this is going to be like the only way we can fight infection unless we get some really good antibiotics up in.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm not sure. Like, do antibiotics boost the white blood cells to better attack the bacteria, or does it directly attack the bacteria?
I think it directly attacks the bacteria.
It attacks the bacteria.
No, I know this one does. The antibiotics in general.
Antibiotics attack the bacteria.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, because like, you know how penicillin was discovered?
Moldy bread.
Yep. And there was this big spot where there was no moldy bread. And the guy was like, huh, that doesn't look moldy. What could it be?
Yeah, the way that antibiotics work is good, but it has to be like if the antibiotic doesn't kill all the infection, all the bacteria, then it's effectively worse than if you had used no antibiotics.
Right. Which is why they'll overpower antibiotics with broad spectrum antibiotics, probably.
That's why they do it. But again, counterintuitively, that makes it worse because when one does get through, then you get this super powered one that takes over even broad spectrum antibiotics.
Right. But I just want my fever to go away, so I don't care.
Yeah. And in most cases, a fever is viral, and so you shouldn't be taking antibiotics at all. And this is where the problem gets started.
Okay, so I've made the most basic Google search of how do antibiotics work.
I hope it was a
And
crash
I-
course video.
I have learn.genetics.utah.edu, and it says antibiotics work by affecting things that bacterial cells have, but human cells don't. For example, human cells do not have cell walls, while many types of bacteria do. The antibiotic penicillin works by keeping a bacterium from building a cell wall, and human cells don't have cell walls?
Not in the same way. We have the membranes, but not a cell wall.
Oh, like not the big ones that like plant cells have.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Similar, yeah. The same idea.
Okay, so I was getting walls and membranes confused.
Like
Mhm.
I was
10th grade
but if
biology.
they don't have cell walls, why aren't we just a big pile of mush?
10th grade biology is flooding back to me, looking at celery under a microscope.
I actually like it's not 10th grade biology for me, it's the magic school bus. And also onion cells.
Yeah. So we will keep our eye on this, but everyone seems very excited about this. People that know more than we do, and the science world is ablaze, obviously. But
Well, you can't just write that the science world is freaking out without
Exactly.
it actually doing so. I'm pretty sure like the Royal Society has to issue an official proclamation saying the Royal Society of Chemistry is officially losing it. And then they'd be like, "Oh, we can report on this now."
the other interesting angle of this is the focus on the fact that this is a 25-year-old. And I feel like we've forgotten that in the earlier days of science, everyone discovering, like making big discoveries, was in their 20s or maybe early 30s. And the older you got, the less likely it was you're going to make some big breakthrough discovery.
Well, that was mathematicians, wasn't it? Like for
Well,
a long time, if you were over 13 and a mathematician, it wasn't going to happen.
Right. But it is the same way with like when you allow scientists, young scientists, to really kind of explore and give them room to breathe and not just necessarily give them projects to do, this is the kind of thing you get. You end up with people making discoveries just because they don't really have any experience. They like a lot of them might make mistakes or do something that is totally unproductive. But thinking outside the box or thinking outside the institution, you end up getting these crazy seeming ideas to someone who might be older, but that turns out it works really, really well.
Well, and also like the one thing I really like that Tom Wu said, Dr. Wu of the University of Ottawa, was that putting fresh eyes on a problem can really lead to excellent results.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this article because in most scholarly articles, there's usually the lead author or the lead scientist, but the article will also mention, and the team at MIT or and her group at whatever. This article only ever talks about her.
This is also sciencealert.com, so
that's true too.
Well, she's the lead author, but if you go through to the paper, there's like 12.
Okay,
authors.
good. Yeah. So that's just poor journal.
Well,
journaling?
no,
Journalism.
The bent of this story is the 25-year-old.
But I think it takes away from the team effort that probably went into this discovery. Like, I understand that you want to prop up, a 25-year-old non-white female, but not in a cynical way. Like, that actually is a good thing. But I think that takes away from the rest of the people in her group.
It's a better story, I think, if it's one person.
That's what I'm saying. I agree on the story aspect, but I think that takes away from it.
Yeah.
Like if I was her, number 2 assistant or whatever, I don't know, maybe she's the assistant, who knows at this point, but
she's a PhD student, so they're usually leading research.
With an advisor above them though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
All I'm
not
saying is that
doing the
it's
work.
weird that it's just her ever mentioned in this article. Like, not even an allusion to more people being involved in the discovery.
Mhm.
Which maybe she literally was the only person involved in this discovery, but I find that like not as likely.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's sciencealert.com and not necessarily representative of how, like, in the paper itself, it's treated.
Yeah.
But yeah, very exciting because, like CRISPR, this seems like the kind of thing that it could not only be great for this one thing that they've been trying it on, but it seems like it could be more generally applicable to
Well, yeah, because
other types of maladies.
you just have to change the nanostructure to affect different bacterial walls.
Yeah.
And you're off to the races. Man, I wonder what Pop's going to be.
We'll have to
Will
reverse
it be
engineer.
like PPOP or
Yeah.
PAWP or something like that?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the one that takes down viruses.
Yeah,
There you go.
definitely. So we got a few more minutes here. Do we want to talk about, Mike? You put Google Keep in here. I don't understand why this is in here.
It's number 3 though.
I know.
Or is
no,
it? Oh, it's number 2.
2.
It's like 2B. It's not even. It's not. It's a soft
So,
2.
Mike, would you rather talk about
Oh.
Nintendo or about
What's
Google
my
Keep?
going to be, guys?
I'd rather talk about. I want to talk about the ceramic iPhone because we've been putting that off. We've been putting that off forever.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the ceramic iPhone, Rob.
Okay.
Lead us down this rabbit hole.
You want me to talk about the ceramic iPhone?
I do. I want you
I
to
actually really
introduce
want
it.
to hear about the ceramic iPhone as well.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of the same thing as the car from Apple, in that there was a piece that came out talking about patents that Apple had made for ceramics. And then by the time we actually got around to talking about it, it's now, there's other pieces that have come out and said this is probably not what they're going to do, and here's why.
We should clarify that it really started when they announced the ceramic watch.
Yes, although that kind of crystallized it, but it had been talked about before. Like, these patents are from before the ceramic watch came out.
Okay.
But basically the idea is that ceramics are strong. They tend to, they're brittle. They'll tend to shatter completely more than just cracking like glass would.
Wait, ceramics?
They're strong, but they're brittle. Like their breaking is,
They have
shattering.
catastrophic failure is what they
catastrophic
call
failure
it.
is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the technical name for it.
You still are confused.
So okay, so
Yeah,
it's
no,
hard.
I don't think I'm thinking of the same like state of ceramics that you are.
It's hard in the sense
yeah.
that it doesn't scratch
Mhm.
and it doesn't bend, but when it does, it's really bad.
Yeah. So
Well, it's like
this is
a lot of products that you
Yeah.
designed to be really strong.
So
and
like
then-
like with glass as kind of the counter or the other alternative to a non-metallic material
Mhm.
used in constructing devices. If you bend a glass device, it will start cracking and will even hold itself together but just be splintered.
yeah.
But ceramics will just fall apart and shatter.
And this kind of discrepancy and discussion kind of is the reason that I want to talk about this in the first place. And that, like, Mike, you mentioned there are materials like glass and other metallic materials that are used in smartphones. And both glasses, especially glass that's used in smartphone manufacturing, and ceramics are very highly based on metals. There's a
Right.
lot of metal in glass. Like, it's usually aluminosilicate or some kind of glass like that, with other elements, other metal elements infused. And especially if you're going to have things like electronics built into the screen, you're going to need those other metals involved. And so ceramic, to me, coming from a kind of chemistry, and I don't have a really strong materials science background, like material chemistry, but ceramics and glasses aren't that different. If you go to, I went a while ago when we were going to talk about this, I went to the Wikipedia page for ceramic, and it talks about basically it's a less amorphous glass. Like ceramics are maybe made a little bit differently than glasses are, but they're made of a lot of the same kinds of materials. And so this article, which I'll post a link to from I guess this is a guy who's involved in like kind of metallic manufacturing, talking about why the iPhone won't be ceramic. He was making the argument that it's really hard to make custom mold ceramics in the numbers that the iPhone comes in, and just because it takes a lot of time, you have to fire these things at the end to actually make them as strong as ceramic ends up being. And so making something like the Apple Watch body in ceramic is totally different scale wise than making it for the iPhone. And that's why it would take a lot longer, because each of those things takes really, really long to do in ceramic. And it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily need to have this full ceramic process to get the properties of a phone to be strong enough to be considered ceramic like. And I think you could do a lot with glass, or at least something that you consider glass in terms of manufacturing process, to have a really, really strong smartphone or really, really strong mobile device of any kind that won't break or bend, but that is like radio transparent, for instance, is a really important feature of smartphones. You don't want to have, like, you can't have an entirely metal body of a smartphone because the radio signals won't be able to get through. And from a material science perspective, it's just really interesting thinking about what the differences are between glass and ceramic. And to me, at least, they're not really that different. The process might be slightly different, but overall very similar.
So I want to just jump in quickly here and say I think like your definition of ceramic is spot on, Rob. Like it's usually metallic oxides, or not quite salts because they're more a network material, but that was my understanding from like the synchrotron radiation course I took, in that we talked a lot, or we talked about many ceramics and structures thereof, and how synchrotron radiation is used to resolve that.
Yeah, it's my exposure to this topic has been mainly through the Accidental Tech podcast. They've had a couple discussions on it the past 3 or 4 episodes. So I encourage anyone who's interested in tech at all to listen to their podcast, but specifically these discussions they have. I don't know if there's an easy way to bookmark or find the portions, but listen to the last 4. You'll come across a couple discussions on it. But yeah, they talked about the radio transparency being a benefit of ceramic, but the manufacturing part was interesting to me just because with the watch, like you said, it's smaller, so it's easier to kind of mass produce these molds, but also structurally, the watch is less likely to be problematic as far as the failure modes go, because you're not, it's not a elongated kind of exposed piece. It's compact, it's on your wrist, it's not in your pocket where it's going to be flexed all the time, all that kind of stuff. So that's why it works for the watch. And also it's a limited edition, well, not limited edition, but it's a expensive watch that not everyone is going to get. So they don't have to literally mass produce a ton of them. Like they'll sell a lot, but not at the same scale as, the iPhone 7.
Right.
And then the other aspect was, these guys, they were trying to, on ATP, they're trying to figure out what the next material after aluminum is going to be. And, they kind of brought up, it's like, well, why does there have to be something after aluminum? Right? Like some stuff just, it works the way they're made. Why do they need a different material? Though I hear what you're saying, where you can get a really nice looking device made out of ceramic. Like you can have a jet black type feel that is almost entirely scratch resistant. Like if it's made out of ceramic.
I'm looking at some silicon nitride ceramics, and that would it would be the height of pimping.
Right. So
that's what everything's made out of.
When you look at the old colors of iPhones, using iPhones, but any smartphone can work with this example. You have the rose gold, the gold, the black, and the silver in the iPhone 7. And they all look and feel pretty much like regular matte aluminum. And then you have this jet black that looks and feels nothing like metal. it really looks more like glass or a ceramic type material than it does metal. And that's because a lot of similar elements are involved. And they take this like this very refined polishing process, and they layer all kinds of things on it, on the metal, to make it like it's Mike, you and I just, it's been described as tacky. Like it really does feel sticky, and it doesn't feel anything like any metal I've ever touched. I don't know if you've ever experienced any other metal that felt like that, but I really haven't. And it makes me think that again, you don't have to go full ceramic where it's going to take kilning and all of the different processes that go into
You'd never
making.
go full ceramic.
You don't have to go full ceramic in order to get the benefits of ceramic. And in theory, if you can come from the other direction, like you can go from metal, you can start from raw aluminum and take it in the direction of making it more like glass. Like there's a slow transition period. You don't have to go either metal or glass. You can mix them together and you end up with like similar to what you have
Mhm.
with ceramics or with glasses.
Yeah.
But what you can also do is
glasses are ceramics.
well, exactly, that's what I mean.
Okay.
And a ceramic is a specific type of glass, but yeah, they're very similar.
No, let me just pick this up, make a bunch of noise. A ceramic is an inorganic, non-metallic, solid material comprising metal, non-metal, or metalloid atoms primarily held in ionic and covalent bonds.
Mhm.
The crystallinity of ceramic materials ranges from highly oriented to semi-crystalline and often completely amorphous. Bracket, example gratia, glasses, close bracket. Varying crystallinity and electron consumption in the ionic and covalent bonds cause most ceramic materials to be good thermal and electrical insulators, bracket, extensively researched in ceramic engineering, bracket.
Okay.
With such a large
Okay,
range of
yes, that's good. Yeah, yeah, okay,
composition
yeah.
structure of ceramic.
How do you turn this auto reader off?
I think it was broken there for a little bit. So yeah, what I'm saying is you can come from the metal side and get to a material that has more helpful properties for an iPhone, like radio transparency, which is really important. But you can also go straight from the glass end of things, like a pane of glass that you'd have in your window, and add more properties to make it be able to, for instance, have a liquid crystal display or an LED display in it, or right below it. And you
Mhm.
can put electronic properties into regular glass, just like you can put ceramic properties into metal. Like these materials are all very similar, and really it's just about mixing things around in order to get the properties you want. When Apple released their Apple Watch Gold Edition, made of actual gold, it was really, if you go and look, it was a gold ceramic. It was this really, really highly processed gold alloy that they made, and it was way harder than regular just 24 karat gold while still being pretty high quality gold. And it didn't necessarily need to have any kind of other ceramic properties. It's really just they're going out of their way to do a lot of material chemistry research, and it doesn't necessarily need to lead to something you would traditionally think of as ceramic, or traditionally think of as glass, or traditionally think of as aluminum, to be a thing that exists in the world. You can mix these things together to get the properties you want and make a phone out of that.
Mm.
And I think that's what the next material is going to be. It's not going to be something we've already heard of or something that exists today. It's going to be a totally new material that is similar in a lot of ways to the materials we do have and use.
It's kind of weird how this idea of needing a different material is basically entirely for aesthetic purposes.
Yeah.
Like what's used now, there's nothing wrong with it. Like there's nothing that we're trying to overcome where it's like, oh, we need to get better.
Well, that's not true necessarily.
I'm not saying there's no added benefit to ceramic, but as far as the motivation behind it is aesthetic, and anything additional is just a bonus.
Like ceramic does have good thermal conduction.
No,
That's what the auto reader just read.
insulation.
You just
Insulation,
read
not conduction.
most ceramic
Yeah.
materials are. Oh, sorry.
Insulation, yeah.
So you would want to have a ceramic material that does have good thermal conduction, which would be a challenge, but not impossible because metals are good conductors of heat. And
Right.
that's so you would have to mix materials around, and you'd
I
almost
know,
have to develop.
but well, what I'm saying is the motivation behind coming up with a different material is because they're trying to find something that looks different to
Well,
integrate into their product. It's not like, oh crap, our phones don't get good reception. We need to come up with material that doesn't shield radio signals. Like
well,
they've
that's what
designed
they do.
antennas, but they've designed antennas in a way that gets around that. Like,
Right, but then that is aesthetic. I agree with you, but that's okay.
oh,
Like
I'm not saying it's wrong. I just think it's interesting that we're talking
yeah.
about material science and oh, it's strong, it's this, it's that, but there's really no reason to replace what we have now. That's kind of the crazy
Well,
thing.
the reason to replace what we have now isn't the back; it's the front. And the goal, I think, is to make them back and front out of the same material or similar material, so that they're both, or at least that they both have the same property. So that if you drop your phone on its back, it's just as likely to crack as if you drop it on the front. Or maybe want to say that backwards. Neither one will break. You want a screen that is strong enough to resist breaking from dropping at any height, and they're getting better at it. But there's still catastrophic failure modes
right.
where you're just gonna have the screen just shatter.
Right. But the problem is that when you have materials, again, this is based on my listening to people talk about it, but materials, you either have high strength, as in they don't scratch, but they shatter very badly, or they don't shatter, but they're very easily scratched. So
Right.
it's one or the other. And ideally, you're finding something in between where it doesn't scratch to the point where you just see scratches when you look at it, but you also don't want it to shatter anytime you drop it.
Right. But there are materials that don't have that problem, and it's about incorporating those features into the materials that they're using.
I think in the case of ceramics, you would have very high thresholds for catastrophic failure and scratching.
Mm-hmm.
But it would fail catastrophically eventually. Like
it has
most things
to be transparent though. That's the whole thing, and so you can't integrate too many different materials into it,
right?
While also maintaining its transparency.
And in all likelihood, we're going to move past this before we ever solve it. Like we may eventually get to a point where the research they're doing now is useful for something. They undoubtedly will, but the next thing in what I'm going to call computing loosely now, but that's probably not a great term. The way that we communicate with the outside world currently via computers, the internet, that kind of thing, is going to evolve again. It's going to keep evolving, and we won't necessarily have these little 3 to 5 to 6 inch slabs of glass and metal in our hands.
Yeah.
But there will be something different, but it will still need the properties that we're discussing now.
Yeah. It's like trying to make a better ham radio. It's like, you don't you don't need to do that because we're past that. Like well, at that time we'd be moving past it. Yeah, like I think we're very much moving towards a screenless society. Like as far as communication goes.
Yeah.
When you're consuming media and entertainment, obviously you're gonna have a screen. But I think like you said, you're gonna be having a different endeavor by the time you come up with something that would work.
Yeah. So I think that's fine for discussion for now. I'm going to keep thinking about this because that's all I ever do. Do you guys have any last thoughts on ceramic or phone materials?
I'm on Team Ceramic.
Good. That's a no then from you, Mike?
I don't know. I believe Apple will do something.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna release new products, and
I do honestly enjoy seeing what they come up with. Like I didn't expect the ceramic Apple Watch. There may have been rumors about it, but it was cool to see them have that instead of the gold. Like I think the gold when they first came out with it was like, well, it's kind of pretentious, but the ceramic is like, oh, that's cool. Like I don't know. So if they come out with a ceramic iPhone, even if it's like a special edition one, then that could be cool too. And then instead of the disclaimer of, oh, it might scratch, it might explode in your pocket. Not
I don't think it would explode in your pocket.
Not a la the Note 7, but in a different way.
Yeah. All right. Well, in that case, thank you for listening to this week's Future Chat. You can head to unwindmedia.com/future chat to see past episodes of the show and to see some of the links that we posted, including going and reading that amazing paper about the 25-year-old who has saved us all from bacterial infection.
And her
That's
research team.
Not clickbaity at all. All right. See you next week.
Ciao.
Blue.
So cold.
And the customary stretch.
I always like this chair is horrible. I hate it so much. And that's why I stretch at the end of every show.
It sounds like you need a new chair.
I do. This one's from Staples and it was like, oh no, sorry, this one's from IKEA, not even Staples.
Yeah.
It's like a $60 chair from IKEA.
Rob, I should mention that you look very Steve Jobsian today.
My turtleneck sweater.
And the 5 o'clock shadow from 3 days ago.
Thank
I'm
you.
kind of wishing you had a chain to go along with that turtleneck.
I know. I really wish I had a chain too. A really thin ass chain.
A chain so thin, like an insect stripper pole.
All right, you guys have anything else you want to talk about in an after show? I should probably get going pretty soon.
I just
want it to be
that,
metal so thin that it dissolves when it rains.
I just want to say that I do appreciate Google Keep allowing you to pin notes.
Okay, yeah.
That was very frustrating to me that you couldn't do that. It's like there's certain ones I want to keep at the top because I'll keep coming back to it.
Right.
But there's no way to do that before, and now you can.
Well,
so
thank heavens.
Thank Google, really.
Exactly.
If you set a recurring reminder, they'd probably stay at the top.
Why would I want that?
I have several with daily reminders or weekly reminders in some cases.
Good for you, Rob.
Weekly reminder, 2 p.m. Bother the guys to upload their damn files.
They do stay at the top.
If they're reminders
pinned.
No.
Or not, the ones that are recurring, repeating. All right. So it does pin Google Keep. You can pin notes. But that's really all you wanted to say, is that you appreciate that.
I do. I wanted us, because I knew that the three of us use Keep. At least two of us do. I think Nick does too.
I definitely do.
Yeah. So I figured we'd all appreciate it, but it wasn't worthy for the main show anyway. So
fair enough.
Just wanted to put that out there.
All right. In that case, I am going to stop